Hello and welcome to Buildings of Tomorrow. My name is Jon Lester, and in today's episode, we're talking all about BIM and the digital twin. We're going to focus today on the delivery phase of a building. So when we go through that idea planning, construction and delivery phase. I'm joined today by Kevin Bauer. He is the lead for BIM and Digital Twin for Siemens Smart Infrastructure here in Europe. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, John. Really happy to be here today.
It's an absolute pleasure, and I'm excited to continue the discussion that we started a week or so ago around BIM and the digital twin, and in that discussion we talked broadly across that whole conversation around why are digital twins so exciting, why are they so interesting for those of us that work in this building industry in the operation phase, but also through that construction phase. And we talked a lot about different values depending on that delivery phase or the operation phase or whatever it might be. Now today we're going to focus on the delivery phase, and let's start at the top. Let's call it, from your perspective, what's so important and why is it so interesting for us to start this conversation and start to work around the digital twin already at the very beginning of a project?
A digital twin is all about data. And let's say when everything is about data, we need to really define and be clear on the topic how we get this data. Because all the values a digital twin promises, like better technical building operations, or better energy management, or better space optimization, is just possible if you get a really, really good digital twin. And a digital twin is, as I said, all about data. And we need to really plan how to get the data. Therefore, the delivery phase is really crucial.
Okay, and would it be fair enough to make when we talk about a digital twin, we always talk about the virtual replication of what happens in the real life. So we build a digital twin and then we build the real building. For you that's gone through this process, and we'll dive in a second into some of the real world experience you've had around this. Does it really feel like building the digital twin when you go through this process in the correct manner?
I think it really depends how you see it. I think what's really important when you go through this process that we work all together, collaborative and based on some standardized frameworks. And therefore, for example, you have this ISO 19650. This is a really important and a really good standard from my point of view, which defines the process of generation and managing data via BIM from the early phase, from the strategy phase of a building until the design or the construction until the operation. And one point which I want to highlight from this standard is that already in early phase, it's really important to define this asset information requirements. So the first step is really think about how you want to operate the building. And then if you have defined on how you want to operate the building, then you can define some use cases. And depending on the kind of building, let's say, for example, hospital, production plant, or if it's an office building, you have different use cases. And then you also have to define, depending on these different buildings, you then need different data. Because, for example, in a hospital, asset tracking is a really important use case in the operational phase. And then you also need asset tracking sensors, and you need to be sure that they're also in the BIM model, and you can combine the operational data with the BIM data. So this is, for example, the first step I would say which is really important.
Okay, perfect. I've done it to you again. As soon as you start to mention standards, I remember that you're a certified building smart trainer, which is really important also because this is what drives that standardization. And maybe my next question would be, you just mentioned how important it is to have that standard approach. How is this starting to look in our industry? Are you starting to see in your other role, let's call it, of training for building smart, are you starting to see more people from different parts of our building industries doing this training and really upskilling themselves to deploy this BIM approach more effectively in the market?
Yeah, we see there a big wave coming that more and more people really get standardized, and this is really important because at the end everything is about knowledge. And let's say if we bring more people on with the certification or specific level, it's much easier to drive these topics because they really understand why do we need to define use cases for the building operation early phase. Why is it important to also integrate all the building automation in a BIM project? Why is it important to have really as-built data and make them high qualitative? And why is it important to, for example, do compliance checking? And having the certification, this basic knowledge really helps to drive this forward.
Yeah, perfect. Let's dive straight into the experience, because this is something that you've lived, you've gone through the process in the real world on projects. Let's jump into that example and give us a bit of insight about the process and how it looks when you start at the very beginning, and some of the things that you discovered along the way. If we go into those, some of those standardization topics.
Yeah, cool. What we can now talk a little bit about is our project in Vienna, the ASPAN Technology Center 2. Mm-hmm. We have already finished this project 1.5 years ago, where we really is also a big R&D project, part of the ASPAN Smart City Research Project, the biggest smart city project in Europe. Mm-hmm. Where we really said we want now to investigate how do you create such a digital twin. And we really went through the complete chain. In the early phase, we thought about this technology center is a startup incubator, office, what kind of use cases are important for the operation phase, for example, flexible offices. Energy management is really important to be really energy neutral. And then as we have defined then these use cases, then we went in the design phase and also thought about which kind of data do we need. And there we identified really quickly, it's not just about having architectural BIM and also mechanical, electrical and plumbing BIM, but it was also really crucial to do also BIM models for the complete building automation. So we created BIM models for all sensors, so for the complete fire safety system, the complete security system, the complete automation system, the complete IoT system is also in the BIM model. We designed them. And also from this design of these building automation systems, we identified in early phase some really interesting values. For example, we could do automatic compliance checking if the fire safety system is compliant to the regulation, because it's really important. If a fire breaks out, everything should be compliant. Mm-hmm. And also the data point and building automation control configuration we could do in advance.
No, perfect, because I think those values are really important. If we looked out into the market and we looked at 10 BIM projects, I think we could confidently say today a majority of them are not done down to that level of detail, with every device and every piece of those operational technology systems mapped within it. So you recognize some values also from that, not just some compliance checking, which is definitely important, especially when we talk about fire safety, but also engineering and design benefits and efficiencies for those building automation systems. How, for you going through this process, was that a surprise? Were some of those benefits that you found along the way, were they all things that you knew would come, or did you find more value than you expected through that process?
I think we even found more value. Yeah. It was really some things are really interesting. We also didn't know this. Yeah, it was also a new project, not a new project, but it's a complete new thing what we identified. For example, what we saw was really interesting is we did complete 3D scanning through the complete construction process. We did 18 3D scans to scan all the work. So we did 3 scans in the structural phase, 15 scans in the equipment phase, and 3 scans at the end when it was as built. And we really integrated the scanning as an own discipline into the building process. So, for example, when the people worked in the second floor because the first floor was finished, we scanned the first floor. And then we identified that this scanning brings values to many different stakeholders, which we didn't know before. Yeah? For example, the site supervision guy was really happy because he could look up if all the quantities are correct, if the contractors don't fool them. Yeah? And then on the other side, the FM guys in the operation phase were also really happy having these 3D scans because they could use them to more efficient operate the building. And also the building owner was really happy to have the 3D scans because he can use them online to, let's say, if somebody, let's say, if he wants to market the building, he just can't do this online via the web browser because it's really easy to use. And in times of COVID, when it's really complicated to meet people, we identified having, let's say, this complete super good documentation is a big value, and also for many stakeholders.
Yeah, right. And that's, I guess that's a really great example of what we spoke about at the start, where collaboration is such an essential part of this whole process, and having the right people involved to help make really conscious decisions along the way also means that those values that you get from the process can be realized by all these different collaborators, and that's a really good example. How, after you went through this process and you did this 3D scanning as an example, and you got to, you started to move through this delivery phase towards the end, how did this help you finalize? Like, how did this help you get to that end and have the confidence and have the information and the knowledge, like you described before, to take that step to finalize that delivery? Did that also bring additional value?
Yeah, I think what's really important, what, let's say, we identified is having all these fire detectors, sensors, actuators in the BIM model, and then also enriching them and integrating them with the commissioning process. So really enriching them with the configuration data, which enables then, let's say, the combination of the structural BIM data with the operational data coming from the building automation system, so humidity, temperature, etc. As we have had done this really good, we then saved a lot of time in the commissioning phase via data point mapping, because we already had such good data. Each thermostat was in the BIM model, each actuator, each fire detector, and they had their own IDs, so BACnet IDs, Modbus IDs. And then, let's say, as we, let's say, pushed on a button and turned on the building automation system like you turn on a computer, everything fit together. Yeah? And it was really surprising for us because, let's say, without this good data, you need to do 3 rounds, map all the things again and again and again because, nothing matches.
Yep.
But in this project, we nearly everything matched. Yeah.
Perfect.
And this was really cool. Yeah, I was really happy.
yeah, I can imagine, because that is really cool. Yeah, that's kind of, that's what we're going for. It's that level of detail, that level of quality of data, which is more important than volume of data. Of course, enables you to do these things, which, like you described, normally you go around 1, 2, 3 times. I think this is where in our industry we talk a lot about inefficiencies, or we talk about processes that really aren't evolving the way that they are in other industries. That's a great example, right? When we have to go around 3 times and move stuff, and drawings aren't complete, and stakeholder 1 works off a different set of drawings from stakeholder 2, and all these crazy things that we see BIM as the answer to find those efficiencies and make it real.
Yeah, fully agree to this, because as you said, looking up this data, don't find this, having their problems, these are all the problems what we have in the construction industry. We have so many activities which are non-value adding. And let's say where we need to go, what our clear target is, we need to automate things and get rid of all these non-value adding activities, because let's say then we can do our work faster, quicker, with more quality, have more fun, and also more freedom, probably.
yeah, I like it. All those things I'm excited about, and what I love to see is that it's happening more and more within the industry, and it's starting to happen. And the things that we imagine and we've been talking about for a long time, because whenever we talk about BIM, we know it's not new. It's been around for a long time, but we really start to see it living its best life, let's call it, in projects like this. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. It was a really great discussion. I'm looking forward to following up with another discussion in the near future, where we start to look at the operation phase, and we can really see how the building twin leverages all this data that you just described, this process that you went through on this project, to define and deliver those values that you described around space optimization and mechanical management and operation, et cetera. I thought after this whole conversation and after this progress and the process that you and your team went through, if you had to boil it down into 1 or 2 or 3 key points. If we're talking about the delivery phase, what would you say are the most interesting or important points or topics that you picked up through that experience that you'd highlight now for those listening?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I think, to get to a real digital twin, it's really crucial to integrate into the complete BIM design and construction process, also the complete building automation. So we need to integrate the complete fire safety system, security system, automation, IoT system. And next to this, if you have planned it, also integrate 3D scanning as its own documentation process to really come at the end to this good as-built data. And with this, let's say, with this combination of really good BIM and also 3D scanning, we then can dramatically increase, on the one hand, the efficiency of the engineering and also the commissioning. That at the end, we have really this good data. We have this digital twin combining BIM and IoT and building automation, because this then just enables all the values. For example, the more efficient technical building operations, more energy efficiency, and also better space efficiency.
Understand. Honestly, I think I'd love to have a discussion at some point in the near future just around the 3D scanning, because I think in itself, as you described just there, making its own documentation discipline is a really interesting concept, because there's different ways to do it, different approaches, but then as you described in your process, doing it throughout the structural phase, throughout the equipment phase, and then in the as-built, they all bring different information that can be useful for different things. So maybe we'll put this on the list, if that's okay with you, to revisit and get a bit more detail as well.
Yeah, we'd be really happy to do this. Yeah.
Perfect. Then thanks again, Kevin. Your time is much appreciated, so thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the time, John. It was really cool.
It's always good fun, so I very much appreciate it, and I extend that thank you out to everyone who's listening to us here, whether you're on your favorite podcast platform or you're streaming this wherever it might be. Please remember to like, comment, and share. Subscribe to us so you can catch up with more conversations with Kevin around BIM and Digital Twin, but also other topics that we talk about every week. You should see new episodes, so make sure you do that. Reach out to us to say hello and ask for new topics, and also reach out and find Kevin, whether it's via LinkedIn or wherever it might be, to continue the conversation around BIM and the Digital Twin. So thank you to everyone, and thank you again, Kevin, and we'll see you all soon.
Cool, thank you.